everybody. Hope you guys are having a good day. Just got done with my classes for the day. Basically, I have 3 classes, Monday, Wednesdays, and basically they start at 9 o'clock in the morning and don't finish till 1:15 in the afternoon, which right now it's about 1:30. Usually today is like my shit day. Basically, this is when I get shitted on, because basically right after I'm done from here, I go straight to work and I stay there till I close from 2 o'clock to 8. So basically, I forgot my lunch today too, so I'm gonna be starving when I get home later. But I did have a burrito this morning, so I guess that'll hold me over until then. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about work. Of all things to be talking about, I just like to talk about it. Think about all the things that are going on besides school-wise. Which, by the way, I hope if you're in school, I hope everything's going well for you. Number one key to going to school, I think, is having a game plan in terms of like time management. Know how to balance everything. Don't freak out. Stress is gonna come regardless of what you do to prepare for it, but I feel that if you don't let yourself seep into that stressful ideology, then you're less susceptible to becoming immersed in it, if that makes any sense. We can talk about that too. Get a little bit into education, what I think about education. Touch on it here, and then I think I'll make a separate video for it. So let's go ahead and start with my main topic for today, which is work. How is it where you work? Do you get along with everybody you work with? Do you like what you do? Do you even consider work to be work? Me personally, when I was working for the Pueblo of Isleta under the Management Information Services Department, that was never work for me. I think that the old saying about like if you find that job that you truly want and that you never work a day in your life, that is ultimately true. Because essentially, if you love what you do, you never really consider it work. Although they do not tell you that basically work will always be work. Although you may love what you do, you will always have like some sort of maybe like a political disagreement with your other coworkers, and sometimes that creates an obstacle where you work. And that's sometimes what causes other people to move from one firm to another, or one organization to another, which can or cannot be a good thing. In my experience, it's always been a bad thing when people leave, just because usually it's for something stupid like that, where somebody has a mild disagreement about somebody else. But anyway, so when I worked there, that's when I found my passion for IT, as I mentioned in the previous video. And basically, like, that's kind of what I've been striving for ever since. And it goes hand in hand with like my view of education, because in a weird scenario where I ended up getting to the position where I wanted to be before it was my time, so to speak, I now have to like wait and obtain, like, I wouldn't say it's needless information, but I would say more in-depth, detailed information that isn't necessary for the job that I want to obtain. And a lot of people say I'm selling myself short when I like put myself in that type of perspective, but in reality, I feel that not everything they teach you in school is absolutely necessary for you to be functional in the real world, especially in college. Because in college, they go into detail about, like, for example, in IT, like, they'll go, like, hardcore, in-depth Like, for example, I have, like I mentioned earlier, three classes that I take. One of them being a hardware and installation class for personal computers, which to me is entirely like not necessary, because like that's basically what I had a job in for 6 months, and I essentially know like everything in that class. Although like there are some like points of information that I did not know about, like the detailed information of like how a hard drive works, or how exactly a CPU like created like the speedy components that we have now. And essentially I don't need to know all that stuff, basically because the history of knowing where something came from, although it may be, you know, beneficially speaking, to understand the history of where it came from, it's kind of like why general history is kind of like, it's good to understand where like humanity made mistakes, but in the realm of development, it's kind of like, why would you need to know that? Unless you're an engineer that designs new software and or hardware, then it's beneficial to learn those things. However, if you're simply repairing them, the insight knowledge for that is not necessary, in my opinion. You know, leave a comment saying otherwise. Maybe I'm always open to other comments and hearing what others have to say. But anyway, referring back to my main point with my job, after I was let go, after my contract expired, now that I've been working as a lifeguard, it's not all totally negative, because like, although it's not like the field of work or the profession I should say, that I'm gonna be in, it is something that will grant you experience in the workforce. And like, what I mean by that is, the more experience you get from different places, the more applicable you are, because you gain awareness as to like working with different sets of people. And although that may not like come into play when you are in your profession, if the need arose where they needed somebody who had like experience, for example, working in a team, that's something that, like, for example, like, let's say like you were given a project to work on in your workplace, and they ask you to work as a team, and you've never worked in a team before, then you're kind of at a disadvantage, because you don't have the communication that, say, somebody else does, and you gain that through experience. And that's something, as being a lifeguard right now has taught me to do, is work as a team and really feed off of one another. And so overall, like, if you do gain the opportunity to progress in a field that you may not think is actually beneficial, give it a shot. If the need like arises, that, like, say for example you're looking for a job to like get some extra money, but like you don't want to work like for, like, say, a fast food restaurant, but really working for that fast food restaurant is actually going to gain you some experience. Although, like, you know, the pay may not be the greatest, you'll learn some valuable skills along the way. And so briefly, like earlier I was talking about education. I have a big beef with like the way the education system is set up, and how it's kind of geared towards like everybody going to college. And it may sound hypocritical coming from me, who is a college student, saying like college isn't great. But let me explain to you why I think that the education system is flawed. And let's go ahead and start with even just like standardized tests, starting from like even the get-go, from high school, middle school, like, and from what I understand now, like elementary schools even do them. Common Core Standard, which is what was implemented near the end of the Obama administration, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, standardized tests have become a huge impact upon what basically what knowledge you have. And so to me, I have a problem with that, because just because you can pass a test doesn't mean that like you're applicable in the real world. And that may sound ignorant, but from a personal experience, when I started working with MIS over for POI, it was saddening to see from somebody. At the time, I started working there when I was 19, and so I'm 20 right now. And so basically, I started working there when I was 19. There was 2 other technicians that worked there. One of them having a bachelor's degree in information technology. The other one just having experience. And somehow, in the matter of 6 months, I managed to learn everything that they knew and exceeded it, because I put my full effort into the profession that I was doing. And in the end, they ended up asking me like how I was troubleshooting certain problems that puzzled me, because they should have already known these things, considering the experience they had and the one that actually had a degree in the field. To me, I've never, even to this day, I still don't understand how that can happen, where you basically went to school, learned all the stuff, and wasn't able to apply it. And I think honestly that comes down to individual prowess, because basically you are only going to achieve as much as you put forth. The effort that you put forward and the applicability of what you gain is only what you are going to put forward. And so for me, like, going back to school, like, was kind of like, oh, why am I going back here to learn certain like things that I already know? And so for like, in rare cases like mine, it's almost like not beneficial to do that, and it's better to just actually learn the things that, like, learn the skills and skill sets that you'll need in the workplace, like through a third party almost. Like, it's almost more beneficial to go out of your way and find it and learn it on your own, and then try and get like a certification, which is what honestly I'm trying to do right now, and use that to get into the field that you're looking to get into. And for example, say like in the IT field, the way that they have the certificate or degree set up is basically set around whether you want to go into networking or databasing. And that's like some higher level like processing and like thinking that you like will need to like learn about in like a school environment, because it's something that you're going to need a lot of practice in and a lot more guidance in than, for example, what I want to get into, which is just basically troubleshooting basic hardware components on a PC and software on a PC. That's not to say though that like education isn't important. You still need to have some sort of teaching through someone or something. And what I mean by something is like there's a lot of curriculum now that like in the IT field that they even offer through just straight up online, like where you just have to read, and like for the most part you can understand, and then like the applicability comes when you actually go into like a test environment where like they're like, okay, we're gonna show you how like what physical components you're looking at, and then like say in like a week they would test you on like how to like assemble and disassemble a computer. And that I think is more important, the practical knowledge over just expansive knowledge, which is a term that like that I just kind of came up with, but is also something that like is logically set, in the sense that I don't think you'll ever use the expansive knowledge as much as you will the practical knowledge. Although, like, you know, there is the argument that can be made that expansive knowledge one day may come in handy. but in reality, most of the time it's never used. And that's kind of what college and school teaches you, is this kind of expansive knowledge that most of the time you'll never use. But that's just my own personal take and opinion on the stuff. I'm taking 3 classes right now, and I love all 3 of them. Like, it gives me extra knowledge and skill sets in what I already know, more detailed information. I just wish sometimes that like the path to which where I want to get to isn't so muddied in the way that you have to go through and acquire. Sometimes in some cases where some people can't afford to go to school, they take on debt and then end up being thousands of dollars in debt, and that's just never a good thing. I always told myself that if I couldn't afford school, I would just drop out, because I don't believe that you should force yourself to go and obtain massive amounts of debt just to go to school. And that may sound like an extreme, in which case maybe, but like I know like in my personal experience, I have some background in different fields to keep me going up until like I can afford to go back to college. But like the cheaper alternative, which is what I'm doing right now, and is actually, I would actually recommend to a lot of people, just to like, if you have a job or if you just don't have the funds to go to school like full time for like 15 credit hours, you can do what I'm doing, which is just go part-time to a community college and go there full-time. You know, in most places I think is 12 credit hours or less is part-time, and full-time is sitting near like above 12 credit hours. So I mean, you can manage fairly easily taking that many credit hours and be able to manage your daily life. And most of the time in a community college as well, like the professors there won't be as harsh on one, helping you out because they have less of a class size to deal with. It's just mainly like one of my classes literally consists of 7 people, but like for example, like a main 4-year university, they can have classes up to 100 people. So I mean, it's fairly difficult to kind of like the appointment factor becomes a bigger thing when